RedZoneSports.bet, the British home of American sports.
Hi, welcome to the SportsHeads. We're in the London studios of Red Zone Sports. I'm Simon Millen from Lindy Sports, and we're going to be looking at college football. With me, I'm pleased to say, we've got Matt Phillips from UKDraftGuide.com, and we're going to be looking at some of the prospects coming out of college this year and into the NFL next year. But this segment is going to be mainly about quarterbacks, because that's the glitzy, glamorous position that we're all looking for. A few teams looking around for them. We've put up a couple of names in the past. We're going to have a look at some of the quarterbacks that might be coming out. Josh Rosen seems to be everybody's pick at UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, just recently we had the Josh Rosen versus Sam Darnold game in the Rose Bowl. The thing that stands out about Josh Rosen, he's the most accurate quarterback in this draft inside the pocket. Mm-hmm. You know, he belongs in the pocket. He's a natural when he's dropped back, and which is going to be appealing to a lot of NFL teams.
Yeah. He's 6'4", throws a great spiral as well.
He's got a great arm, yeah.
He has got a great arm. He is a pure pocket passer, as you say.
Yeah, he's a bit of a throwback to what was more common probably sort of 10, 15 years ago. And I think the thing that NFL teams will like about him, he's got that sort of rare ability to work through his progressions. He's an anticipatory thrower, so you'll often see when you're watching Rosen, what stands out on tape to me is he's throwing to receivers that aren't even open yet. And it's that anticipatory ability doesn't come along very often.
And the other thing is he works from under centre as well, which is he's not a pure.
Yes, he does.
And that really makes a big difference to NFL teams, because that's generally how the playbooks work there. Yeah. He isn't a dual threat. He doesn't have a great set of wheels on him.
No,
but,
no, I don't think so. But he has enough ability to shift around inside the pocket, but that's really where he's comfortable, and you know that's obviously an NFL trait that's very translatable.
Do you think he's going to enjoy playing in Cleveland if he goes there? Does anyone?
Well, it's a bit of a shock to go from Pasadena to Cleveland. But,
it's an interesting thought, though. I mean,
yes.
some of these West Coast, warm weather quarterbacks don't always translate to cold northern teams, do they?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, Josh Rosen would be the first to say he had a bit of a down year last year. And this year he really has made a comeback and put his name back into that conversation again as the best quarterback there is. Obviously, he's a junior, so there's not a guarantee that he's going to come out this year. But I'd be very surprised, all things considering. It seems like he is going to come out. But
where does he go? And where's he drafted?
Well, it's so difficult to say. I mean, every year we seem to say, there's so many NFL teams looking for quarterbacks, and we don't really know how the draft order is going to shake out in terms of late trades. You can never really trust the Cleveland Browns to stay there in that position. Yeah. I mean, at the moment I've got him as my third best quarterback at the moment.
Wow.
But that's really changing depending on the team. And
who is your top quarterback?
My top quarterback has been for the last 2 years. This year is Lamar Jackson of Louisville. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of sort of conversation about him. Through the draft season, people writing him off. I think what we've got here is a guy who's become the most complete quarterback in college football.
Right. I see him as slightly behind Josh Rosen, simply because he averages 6.9 yards a carry. He's a great athlete. He's tough in the pocket, but he's more of the dual threat.
Well, he is, but I think he's misunderstood. I mean, this off season and this season has really shown more of a complete game. He now stands tall in the pocket. He's calm in the pocket, and he's got an effortless throwing motion, just a flick of the wrist, to hit the intermediate areas of the field.
Good arm too.
Yeah, great arm. And obviously, I think the myth with him is many people think of him just as a running quarterback who's going to take the first chance to escape the pocket. But
who does he remind you of?
I think you can't really get away from Michael Vick. He does. When you watch his games, you really do sort of are reminded of Vick. But I think he's a better passer than Vick ever was.
I mean, the knock on him, funny enough, was accuracy issues.
Yeah, and he's really tightened up on that this season. Right. He's still got room to grow a little bit, but I think the work he did in the spring has really paid off. Again, he's a junior, so
got good size as well, hasn't he? 6'3".
He's very strong. A lot of people are worried about the RG3 nature of his build, but I don't go along with that, because at times defenders do fall off him. He's very difficult to bring to the ground.
Well, let's talk about some of the other quarterbacks. Sam Darnold. Now, some people have got him ranked pretty high. That's probably about the third quarterback being taken in this draft. Tell me a little bit about Sam Darnold. I mean, he had a poor season. To me, he lacks a little bit of confidence this year.
I think he's been hot and cold. When we're scouting quarterbacks or any player in their position, you're looking at translatable traits that they can take to the pro game, and you get that in flashes with Sam Darnold. To me, he's still very much a raw player. His ball security issues are a big sort of consideration here. They've been a big worry. 12 interceptions this year, and that's something that does carry over to the NFL game, as we're seeing with Jameis Winston. But what stands out with him is he's dangerous on the move. People don't realise that actually when he's out of the pocket is when he's at his strongest, and he's an anticipatory thrower. So he's throwing receivers open to then be able to get the yards after the catch. So
and
he's
that
got
may be the sort of possible lack of talent around him is causing these interceptions. What I do love about him, especially when he's on the run, when he's outside the pocket, is the touch on his passes. He has got a good touch on his passes.
I mean, his game is next level, but he just needs to polish up in terms of the interceptions. A lot of those interceptions are still on him. And in terms of when he's on the quarterback keeper, ball security issues are a real concern at the moment.
Arm strength isn't, and I actually thought last year he was very, very accurate, but not so much this year.
No, he's taken this backward step. But one thing you can say about Sam Darnold is he's a winner, and that is one trait that really always translates really well. I banged on about it last year with Deshaun Watson when people were knocking him. The fact that you can take your team so many times this season for USC, he's taken his team and brought them back into games they probably shouldn't have a right to win. So, and that's something that will carry him far in his career in the NFL. But me personally, I really want him to go back to school one more year and to refine that game. Okay.
Josh Allen, 6'5". I've sort of got one or two doubts about him. He's really struggled this year. I mean, he's basically, he struggled against a team like Hawaii, who are a 3-9 team, and that, to me, that sets warning signs. I know it was early in the season, but you've got to beat a team convincingly like Hawaii.
I think he's one of those talents where he's got the build, NFL build. He's got the next level size. He's got the arm strength to hit all aspects of the field.
His decision making is a problem for me.
For the last 2 years, he's had that QB1 potential. He looks like an NFL quarterback, which I think papers over some of the cracks in his game, as you say. And this year has been nothing short of a disaster for him personally. I think he's liked more in the media than he is actually on by NFL teams. And I just think that the decision making is going to be a huge concern, and for me, he's not a first-round quarterback at this time.
Okay, talking of potentially overhyped, let's have a look at Baker Mayfield. What are your thoughts on Baker Mayfield? He won the Heisman Trophy, and I just think he's a poor man's Johnny Manziel. Now, he's shorter than most quarterbacks, and a lot of people have likened him to a Russell Wilson. Now, they seem to have fallen in love with him because he is a Russell Wilson type player. But what you've got to remember is Russell Wilson was an absolute athlete in college. Baker Mayfield doesn't have the same skill sets as Russell Wilson, but I still think there are going to be teams that are going to be falling in love with the skill set he has.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Baker Mayfield as my second quarterback behind Lamar Jackson.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think he's underrated, but those points are absolutely valid. But there's something about him. Again, people are looking at the size. We've been here before.
Yes, of course. Drew Brees, etc., etc.
But he makes it work for himself. In college football, there's no greater improviser than Baker Mayfield.
His footwork is poor.
Mechanically, he can be a mess at times. He's got the nose for the big play, and that's something that, and also he's got that moxie to bring his team back from the dead, and that's something that I don't think you can sell looking ahead to the NFL. But one thing he has developed this year is knowing when to throw the ball away, and that's something that he's cut down on those mistakes.
But he plays in a system where they always put up gaudy passing numbers. So that masks. It plays to his strength. I don't think he's got a particularly great arm either. He's not the strongest passer in the world. Not
the strongest arm. He's an accurate thrower. As you say, he puts up those numbers in a simplified offense. But I think much of that it comes down to the team that's going to draft him, you're going to have to, with all these rookies, you're going to have a playbook that suits them and not the other way around. You know, I think what's going to happen is the NFL has always been manipulated by what college is doing, and I think that NFL head coaches and offensive coordinators are going to have to mould their games to the culture that they're drafting.
We talked about potentially the sort of top 4 or 5 that could go in the draft this year.
Yep.
Who are some of the dark horses that you've got, Matt? Who do you like out of the sort of people that aren't necessarily on the radar nationally?
Sure, I'm a big fan of Kenny Hill, ex-Texas A&M quarterback. I think we famously, Kenny Thrill he found himself on the front of the SI cover. You know, he's hugely improved. The big knock on him at TCU last season was his penchant for throwing interceptions. He's really cut that down this season. And again, he's another one of those guys who's a winner, and he can do it. He's got a good arm, great accuracy, and also he's pretty destructive with his legs in short yardage situations. So I really like Kenny Hill. He's a winner, and he's just got that swagger to him. And also, if he comes up this year, he's got Will Greer. Yep. Who I really liked at Florida, and he's taken it on to West Virginia. I'm not convinced he's going to come out this year. Same with Ryan Finley of NC State. I think he's a potential first-round quarterback, but perhaps both of those are going to go in 2019.
Okay. What about the guy I've had my eye on for a little while is Northwestern's Clayton Thorson. He seems to have prototypical size. He's 6'4", quick release, good mechanics. He's had a terrible supporting class around him. Good athlete, strong arm. He's smart. The other thing is he's a Christian. He melds well in the locker room. He melds well with all sorts of people. Coaches aren't going to have an issue with him like they would do with, say, a Johnny Manziel or something like that.
Sure.
I think he could make the grade as one of the lower rounds.
Yeah, I think he'd be a surprising addition to a team, to be honest. Like you say, the one thing that comes through with him is the leadership. Obviously, intelligence is a given when you're a student at Northwestern, but he's well liked by his team. He is a leader. He does take that team by the scruff of the neck. This season, he lost his number 1 receiver to the draft in the off season, so he's been doing it without him, his insurance blanket. Yeah, I like him a lot, and I also like you've got other guys under the radar such as Brian Shaw, James Madison, who plays in the FCS. Very impressed with him, and Jeremiah Briscoe plays for Sam Houston State. So they're 2 guys that you can sort of look for in the FCS championships. What
about Mason Rudolph? Now, some teams love him, and some teams think he's a 4th or 5th round pick.
He's hot and cold. He's got a fantastic arm. He's got the great size, but one great play can be followed by poor decision making the next. He's kind of reeled in the poor decision making that has been.
He has. To me, he seems to struggle throwing into tight windows.
He does, and
because of the arm strength more than anything else.
Yeah, and he's got a great supporting cast in Oklahoma State with Marcel Aitman, who's going to be, fringe first-round pick. James Washington is a fantastic receiver as well. So he's got the weapons, and he's still that sort of tendency to overthrow guys.
He doesn't have that anticipation, it seems to me.
No. He's basically good at what he's given, and he uses those physical traits. But I think he's got a lot of work to do at the next level. Okay.
How many quarterbacks are going to be taken in the first round of the draft? That's always a key question.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with 4.
Right.
I don't think it'll be any more than 4 this year.
Okay, and they are going to be?
They're going to be Jackson, Mayfield, Rosen, and if Darnold comes out, he'll be the 4th one.
Okay. Let's have a quick look at who missed out at the college awards last week. We saw winning the Heisman Trophy. Tell me a little bit about the Heisman and who missed out, who won it, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Baker Mayfield has been a shoo-in for the second half of the season. I think we all thought maybe perhaps Penn State's running back Saquon Barkley was going to get it at the first part of the season, but Baker Mayfield's made it his own. I think the sort of media's been looking for any.
Do you agree with that?
I do. Yes, I do. I think he was unlucky not to win it last year. I think when you're watching college football just as a fan rather than a scout, I think Baker Mayfield is one of the first guys you want to watch just for pure entertainment value, and the fact that he carries his team on his back, and he'll make that great play in the last seconds of games to win it. He's just so much fun to watch. He cleared up. He also won the Walter Camp Award and the Davey O'Brien Award and the Maxwell Award and so on and so forth. So he really cleaned up on Sunday at the awards ceremony. So I think it's fully deserved. Interestingly, I think as voters, most voters in sports like to try and be different. I think Lamar Jackson suffered from cleaning up at the award ceremony last year, and I think voters, his game has perhaps been even better this year and more of a complete game than it was last year when he won the Heisman. We're splitting hairs between the two this year.
Sure.
Actually, Lamar Jackson didn't win anything this week, so I think he's been hard done by some.
He just needs a bigger cabinet at some point, we think.
Yeah, and I think also, I think he's had his turn, hasn't he? I think Ed Oliver, defensive tackle, obviously of Houston. To me, he's the best player in college football this season.
Okay.
He affects games in so many ways. But again, he plays on defense, and if you play on defense, you don't get awards.
Sure. What about looking ahead to next year, the Heisman race? Who have you got under the radar?
I've got Jonathan Taylor, the running back of Wisconsin.
Right.
It's arguable he's under the radar, to be honest.
Sure.
He's really come out. He's only a freshman. He's run for 1,800 yards this season, with 6.8 yards per carry for a freshman.
That's not bad going.
And he comes from a great production line. He's playing behind the best offensive line in the country, but he makes his own yards.
As well.
Yeah, but Jonathan Taylor's one to watch out for next year. I think you've got Kelly Bryant, the quarterback from Clemson. It's kind of a Deshaun Watson clone, really. If you could perfectly replace Deshaun Watson with somebody, then Bryant is that guy. And also, if Will Greer of West Virginia goes back, I think he's had gaudy numbers again this year. Just under 3,500.
If he doesn't go back, where does he go? Who sort of what round do they take him? Is he a sort of late second day?
I think he's a second round quarterback at the moment.
Right.
But he's a highly accurate quarterback on deep throws and in the intermediate level as well. I'd like to see him go back just to refine his game and become a first round quarterback.
College bowl season starts on Saturday. 41 college bowls. Are there just a little bit too many of them?
I think there's always that tendency. I think last year we had 3 teams of sub 500 were taking part. This year there's no teams under 500 taking part, so they have kind of reeled it in a little bit. So, but I think unless you're one of the top college teams, if you're one of the mid-major or small schools, then becoming bowl eligible is the paramount aim each season. I think if you take that away, while it may not mean so much to the big boys, to most other colleges, it's the pinnacle, and for the students involved, it's the great day out for them. Okay,
great stuff. Of course, we've got Oklahoma facing Georgia in the Rose Bowl.
That's right.
And the other one is Clemson, Alabama, part 3 in the Sugar Bowl. That'll be a really fascinating matchup for the semi-finals on January the 1st.
Yes.
I think did we touch on it the last time you were in? Tell us who you got in those games anyway.
It's just so hard to tell, isn't it? To be honest, I mean, I think
it's that fence again, isn't it?
It's that fence, but Clemson and Alabama are just so difficult to divide. I don't think this is as great or as talented an Alabama side as we've seen. So I would favour Clemson.
Right.
And I just think that if Baker Mayfield plays, which I would imagine he would do, I just think he can carry them to a national championship this year.
Great to have you with us, Matt.
Thank
as
you.
Always. Thanks again. We'll have you in again soon with the Sports Heads. And that's been the college football chat. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any questions or whatever, by all means, put them on the YouTube channel, and we will get round to answering them, hopefully. But I hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy the college football season, what's left of it, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Here at Red Zone, we have a soft spot for American sports, especially NFL. It's as American as cheerleading. Unfortunately, when it comes to betting on gridiron, there is very little choice between bookmakers. That's because almost all bookmakers get their odds from Las Vegas. And we all know what happens in Vegas should stay in Vegas, especially their nasty odds. So we're stripping back to basics, creating our own odds, giving you lucky punters the very best of British bookmaking for American sports. Would you like to see some more? RedZoneSports.bet, the British home of American sports.